Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis show, man. On this episode, one of my bestest buddies from California, from the SoCal, Ira Bowman, Bowman Digital Media. That's just fun for me to say, man. I always love saying Bowman Digital Media because it sings, brother. How you doing? How you doing there, Ira?
I'm doing good. I I've got a lot to talk about today. So, anyways, I'm doing fine. Everything's good.
Well, well, then let's get into it because well, like I was saying in the green room, I know a lot of the answers of the questions I'm going to ask because we've known each other. So, but I'm going to pretend like we don't. So, man,
Right.
tell me.
Who
Well,
are you,
hey, I
Otis?
I don't have the answers to the questions though, so we'll still have that curiosity component in there.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's right. Camden is here. Maybe we'll just include him a little bit in this conversation.
There we
Or
But
go.
not,
I want to know, yeah, or not. I mean, it hadn't stopped me before. I want to know where where the idea to get into digital media hit you. How'd that happen, man?
Yeah, it was a mistake. I mean, or by chance, or like a lightning strike, really. So I was in the print business. I got started back in the print business selling equipment in the year 2000. And I did that solid for 10 years till 2010. Basically, I basically just sold equipment. And then I went for a job in Las Vegas after I had left a previous employer, thinking that I was a perfect fit for their company. They weren't advertising a role. I just thought, hey, I've got the pedigree that you're looking for. Here I am.
Mhm.
Let's do this thing. And they looked at me and said, no, you're totally right, but we don't have an opening. So how about we hire you for this other thing instead, which was selling graphics. So instead of selling the hardware, now I was selling the output, signage and wallpaper and wraps and think of like the side of buildings and cars and stuff like that. So anyways, with that, I started to learn how to do the design work because I found that dealing with smaller business owners, they didn't always have a graphic designer. And if you could provide the graphics, you could get the work. And so my boss didn't care. He's like, if you got to design the work to get the print jobs, then so anyways, that was my foray back in 2010 to it. But I was still in the print world, and I was in the print
Mhm.
world until 2020. In May of 2020, I was laid off because of COVID. A lot of people were, and so that's where I had a decision to make. What do I do? I run a nonprofit called Project Help You Grow, which I help job seekers connect with employers and recruiters who are looking for people. So it's kind of like a gateway or a bridge, if you will. Now, in that, I learned that the average job search took 6.5 months before COVID-19 started. After COVID-19 started, at that point, there wasn't really any data to tell me how long it was taking, but I knew it was at least 6.5 months and probably longer, which I later found out was about a year. So I told my wife, so we don't have time for a job search. I had about $12,000 in the bank. So like, what am I going to do with my 8 kids, my crazy, I live in Southern California. It's really expensive to live here. What am I going to do? Well, in 2018, I started to build up my LinkedIn to get more visibility online.
Mhm.
And by 2020, I had 150,000 followers on LinkedIn. So the idea to have a digital media company really just came as like I made a post and I said, hey, what would you do if you had 150,000 followers? You didn't have to build it. You could just buy into it and make posts and have, and so basically I became an influencer like that. And that's how Bowman Digital Media really was born. I was creating websites. I was doing graphic design on the side for years, but that's where I started to do it as a career. I know it's a long answer, but anyways, kind of complicated. But I didn't set out one day to go, hey, I want to be a media owner. It would just kind of fell in my lap.
What I what I want to know is during that time, because we're all entrepreneurs here. I started doing the math. You're like $12,000. Then you threw out SoCal, so that runway was looking pretty tight.
Two
Could you
months.
take me through
I had two
2 months?
months.
Oh, see,
I
oh,
had two. I
dang, I
had
got my
two. I
prices
had
wrong.
two. I had 2 months. I had 2 months before I was like knocking on doors asking people for money, and I needed money to start my business, as you know.
Where did
So
the plan or like that first like week or two of like, okay, like, you know, that's you already had the oh shit moment, I'm sure. And then after that of like, okay, what's
my
the next
wife,
step?
my wife had that more than I did. Yes.
So how did you in that first week or two kind
Yeah.
of get to start moving forward?
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting story, but I was laid off on a Friday night. It was 5:30 my time. And I had an open call with a buddy of mine called Joseph Stepke. He's Joe, the finance guy. And he's also a member of our tribe there, Otis. So
Mm-hmm.
Joe, the finance guy, and I were on a call on Friday every night at 5 o'clock my time. And my boss was calling me during the call on my cell phone. We were on Zoom. I said, "Hey, Joe, hang on a second," because I had just done a huge, it was $100,000 opportunity quote for the county of Riverside. And my boss knew that I was in that meeting on Friday. So I thought he was calling to check on that. So I thought this was going to be a quick, how'd it go? What's your close rate? Which was over 90%. I thought, I'm good to get a pat on the back instead I got laid off. I didn't know that was going to happen or I would have hung up with Joe. But anyways, Joe heard that. Joe had been asking me for like a year to build his website, to rebuild his website. And so when he heard that happen, he's like, "So you got some free time on your hands, huh? Maybe now you have time to build my website." Like he literally, it went, well, that's what kind of friends we are, right? So I had an order before I even started my business. So what's interesting about the way I had built my network and the visibility that I had is I was actually able to pay my bills the very first month. So June of 2020, I was able to pay my bills from the income that I generated at Bowman Digital Media. It's a crazy thing, but you have to remember two things about me. First of all, I had 150,000 followers on LinkedIn. That's a lot. It's a lot of eyeballs. The second thing is I spent 20 years in sales. So the part that most people struggle with, how to get the message out and how to phrase the message and how to close somebody that's interested, those are not things I had to learn or hire, outsource. Those are things that I brought to the table. So that's why I think it all worked. Plus, I'm just going to put it all on the table. God was blessing me because there's no way I could do it on my own. So let's just get that out there too. It was a blessing for sure.
What brought you so much success in the sales world? How did what was that maybe from your upbringing or
Yeah.
sports or whatever that really, because I mean 20 years in the sales world, that's a lot.
I can answer this so simply. Imagine a cowboy leaning in the back of a pickup truck with some straw hanging out of his mouth, just sitting there talking to another cowboy. That's how I learned. My stepdad, his name was Bill Taylor. He's not with us anymore. He passed away. But he ran a tack and saddle business when I was a kid, when he married my mom. And I got to go as, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid and go to tack and saddle auctions and go to, festivals and fairs and rodeos and watch this guy interact with his customers. And he taught me how to do sales. That's where I learned sales. I call it the all shucks approach. I'm not trying to sell you nothing. I'm trying to become your friend, learn about you, figure out what problems you're having. And then once I have a familiarity with that and we've gained some established rapport and trust, the sale becomes just natural. And so that's how I've always done it. I am not impressive. I'm not a politician. People look at me all the time and underestimate me because they look, this guy is not, I'm 5'7.5". You know what I mean? I'm not intimidating.
And that's on a good day. That
Right.
half inch is on a good day.
Thank you. It's with my shoes. Absolutely. And some hair, maybe. But for sure, right? Like when people look at me and they don't know me, I get underestimated all the time, but that actually works to my advantage because now the expectation level is a little bit lower. I kind of catch you off guard a little bit.
Is that something you realized later on? Because I could see that being something that's in the back of your head as like back of your mind. I mean, as a negative thing, like, oh gosh, I'm not, whatever this picture of as a salesman that we all have. But then there is that advantage to it of if you do walk in the suit with a nice tie and everything, it's like, okay, that guy's a salesman. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Was that conscious at all on your side?
So I struggled with that, honestly. Over the 20 years, there was times where I tried to be especially as I got promoted, like when you become a manager, director of sales, the expectation level shift and what you have to wear shift. So, I would walk in with the suit. I have 20 suits. I never wear them, but I have 20 suits, but I would walk into like a lobby with the suit, and that's exactly what happened. People were like, I don't want to talk to you. Get out of here. Now remember I was in the print business. So I started walking in with samples in like jeans and, so I wear a polo shirt now. Like, so a button up shirt with my logo or a polo shirt with my logo and jeans carrying some props, a sign, blueprints, whatever. And now all of a sudden they didn't know if I was an architect, an engineer, and who is this guy? They don't know. I'm just asking for somebody by name. I'm not even saying, the mistake a lot of people make, who would I talk to in your company about blah, 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 blah. Well, now you're out, right? But when you walk in, now this is where the LinkedIn stuff comes in. I was doing my research before I went in, so I knew who to ask for. So I walk in dressed not like a salesman with something that you don't know what the hell it is, but it looks important. And I'm asking for this dude by name. And they're like, does he know you're coming? Now, that's an interesting question. And I struggle with that at first because I'm not going to lie. I would say no, that they don't know I'm coming. But then what I started to do was I started to call and leave a message, because when you call them and they don't know you, they're going to put you in voicemail, right? So they would put me in voicemail and I'd say, hey, I'm going to be by your office tomorrow at 3:00. Now, when I show up at your office at 2:55 the next day and the secretary or, whoever says, do they know you're coming? You say, yep, they sure do. All right, have a seat. We'll get them on the phone. You know what I mean? And so I started to be successful that way. A lot of what I did was troubleshooting, but what makes me different is I didn't care about how it necessarily looked from an ego standpoint. I just cared about how effective it was. So being effective was more important to me than winning style points.
And that's huge, man. That for anybody to be successful in sales, right, is man, you got to get over your own ego, because your 100%. Own ego will crush you every time. Because if some dude, those guys out there, those assholes that they don't treat you like a person, they treat you like you're trying to steal money out of their pocket or something, and all you're trying to do is give them the right product. So they treat you like crap. And in that, if you take that as a personal attack, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to do anything, I mean, for the rest of the day, quite literally, or more, or even make that next call. So well, did you have tough skin? I mean, where'd that come from?
Tough skin is something that I was born with, for sure, right? I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to bring this show down to like, but I grew up extremely poor. I was homeless for a time. I also was athletic, so I was a wrestler through junior high school and high school, and I ran cross country and track, and so when you grow up the way that I grew up, words aren't going to hurt me. I mean, I may not like them. It may irritate me, but usually what I learned to do, and I learned this in judo. So in judo, what I learned to do was to take the momentum of the attack and go with it. So it's easier to get out of the way or to grab and go with the punch than it is to stop the punch, the impact, right? Mm-hmm. So, in sales, some people do call this sales judo, but that's what I learned to do. The other thing that people forget is this: when you win over somebody and they really like you and they really trust you and they buy your products, they're far more likely to also refer you, especially if you ask, which a lot of people don't do. But even if you don't ask, you're much more likely to get referrals. The number one source of my business for many, many years was referrals. So that's why I did the relationship building that I did, even though I could have probably hit a lot more doors and talked to a lot more people if I tried to speed it up. But at the end of the day, what I learned was I want to gain their trust more than anything, even if that meant not selling them anything. And there's plenty of times in my life, even at Bowman Digital Media, where I turn people away. I turn the job down. It doesn't fit. And I almost always regret it when I don't. If I take something on that doesn't fit me because of the relationship, I'm like, you know what? We'll just figure it out. Those are the ones that always come back to bite me in the butt.
I heard this from a comedian. He was talking about it in terms of pitching yourself for your comedy, pitching show ideas. And then he also was talking about it in terms of like the dating world. But it was just that if you could become immune to rejection, that you're just a superhuman because you can go through life, everyone else would get stopped by that rejection, but you want to keep working towards it. And I think what's interesting, and Ira, you're really bringing another layer to that, that phrase I had heard, but it's because if you're immune to rejection, that first no doesn't stop you, and not in a pestering way, but more so of just say like, whoa, I'm not even trying to sell you something. I'm just trying to help you and talk with you, gain your trust, be your friend, because you truly care about what you have to sell, the service that you have to give them, and you recognize the impact of that. And if you let that rejection, I think what a lot of people do, and I can picture myself in some meetings doing this, of if you let that first rejection get you, then it's like you're looking for the rejection as a way out. It's like a cop out of like, as soon as I see them kind of get tired of me, I'm already done with the sale, rather than looking at it as that's not rejection. That's just us having a conversation.
Well, let me help. I used to have this on my cubicle when I was a sales rep. It takes normally for most people 7 to 12 rejections before you get the first yes from a prospect, right? When you're trying to convert a prospect or somebody that you've met from nothing over to a client, you're going to hear 7 to 12 no's. Usually why? For a variety of reasons. The timing's not right. The product's not right. They don't trust you. There's an existing vendor. They're not even the right person. I mean, all kinds of reasons why they're going to say no. But most sales reps are weak and they stop within the first to second no that they hear. So the reminder that was hung up, and it was a little illustration that I had on my thing, and it said, don't give up too soon, right? And look, quitters never win. They don't, because they stop. So if nothing else, you could be the least talented person in the room. Just be the person who refuses to quit, and you're going to win. Look, I married a beautiful woman, and I married her because I didn't quit when she said no the first time. She rejected me, right? But I married her because she didn't know how to get rid of me, right? I'm like mold. I'm like mold to her, right? The fungus. Anyways, I will say this about the word no. No is only a failure if you stop right there. What you should do when you hear no is try to penetrate. So ask more questions. Okay, what is it about this that isn't right? Because maybe they're not rejecting you or the product. They're just rejecting that first quote. Maybe they wanted to make payments and you'd offered a lump sum. Maybe they wanted to pay cash and you'd offered financing. It could be, like I said, maybe it's just not now. Maybe it's next year because my budget needs to reset. I mean, so many different reasons why you can get a no. And if you are so weak that no puts you off, then get out of sales. 100% get out of sales, because you're going to starve to death.
I want to shift gears because this is something I've always found fascinating about you, Ira. Is what is it about the camera, man? I mean, that you just have this love affair with the camera. I mean, you do. What is it about it?
Which side of the camera?
Yeah, I'm not sure what. Yeah, where are you going? Because I'm a professional photographer, so I shoot photos. I love to shoot photos, but people do tell me I interview well, so I don't know if you're talking about this or that.
Well, so far you're interviewing well. We'll
Thank you.
There's more to see, but really I'm talking about the still photos.
You're talking about my cameras. All right.
Yes, which is right there next to you. Like,
wait a minute. Did it one? No, it was me. I love photography. So photography actually is in my family genes, as it turns out. My dad, my aunt, my uncle are all photographers to varying degrees. I didn't want to be a photographer. I kind of refused photography. I started straight in high school. I jumped right into doing video work. And I really liked video work. It was a lot different back then because it was still, analog in the sense that it was tape, not connected to a computer. So we would, put in these VHS tapes and and go for it. But I was in band, I was in music, and my music director had asked me, hey, can you help us out? Can you record because I was in the percussion section. So he's like, can you record the drum line? Can you record the field as they march so that we can get better with our steps? And so that's really where I started my first project, and using the camera for, like a client, if you will, even though it was, my school. Anyways, fast forward into my print world. And when I got into the graphics side, we had the capability to print and scan large. When I say large, I mean 5 foot by 10 foot panels. So we would have artists that would come into the shop. And this is in Las Vegas, Nevada. So, I mean, it's pretty cool. They would come in with these paintings, these master paintings, and they would want us to scan them and then print them like 250, 500, whatever, a set of, so they could retain the master and sell the copies. And they actually would make more money that way. The problem was the scan job by itself was like $300. So my boss would go, we can't do these scan jobs because the original art, their estimating value could be, 25 grand, 100 grand, 250 grand, whatever it is. We're not taking on the liability for a $300 job. And I go, yeah, that doesn't make sense. So one of these guys was so desperate to have us do it. He's like, can you think of any other way that we could get this done? And I was like, yeah, we could take a picture and I'll print the picture. And he goes, would that look good? And I go, well, if you know how to use a camera, it would, right? So he's like, well, do it. I said, okay. So anyways, we tested it out, and that's how I got started with the camera. But my intent was never to become a photographer. I was just, again, to me, that was akin to designing the files, and getting the print work. It was all about getting, problem, solution, job, right? That's sale, if you will. And that's what I was trying to do. So that's where it started. In 2020, when I launched Bowman Digital Media, just to be completely transparent with everybody, I'm like, there's a million media shops out there. What's going to make me different than everybody else? And I thought, well, in a virtual world, if you want to compete in a virtual world, one thing that can make you different is figure out what things do you have to be there? You have to actually be there to do it. And I thought headshots right out of the gate. And I also thought videos, like with COVID, what was the big thing? You couldn't get out into the world to, like, let's say you wanted to go to a tour. You have a production plant. They want to bring people in to show them a tour of the plant so that they can win the trust of the people and get the order, right? Well, virtually with drones and with cameras, I could do video and photo work because, again, video was more my speed. That's where it started. That's where Ira Bowman, the professional photographer, the love of the camera came into existence. It was like I was troubleshooting I was trying to insulate myself, if you will, from being just an also-ran with all these other million digital media firms. So that's where it started. I didn't know at the time I picked up the camera for the first time, this one, that I was going to do 100,000 photos in a year. I didn't know I was going to do that. Like, I just thought, well, I'm going to use it occasionally. But as it turns out, I love it. So there you go.
Well, and now it's become almost part of you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think it's that you didn't have a camera within an arm's length of you, and every time that you and I've been together.
Right. So right. I do. Even on dates, although sometimes on dates, I purposely leave it home. And so what I'm trying to do right now is like look, I'm a branding whore, if you will. I mean, my brand is always on me. It is what it is, right? So like when we go on dates right now, I'm trying to do something other than Bowman Digital Media stuff, just so my wife knows, like, yeah, I'm taking this seriously. So sometimes I leave the camera at home for the dates now, but
maybe you just need to get Ira put on your shirt then, so that could be your branding when you go on your dates, right?
Right. Well, I always have the glasses on. People always tell me my personal branding are my white glasses. So I'm like, all right, that's cool.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Now there's got to be something else there, though. I mean, that comes from that shot, that good picture.
Yeah.
I mean, because you do it all. You do scenery, animals, people. I mean, and you've got such an eye for it. That's got to be pulling you somehow.
It's 20 years of graphics work will teach you. Well, it will teach you the eye part, right? So it's not like, I think a lot of photography people, when they get started, they don't have any experience in the graphics space. I was designing graphics for 15 years. So I knew how to put things in interesting ways, and I have my own style. So when I see things, when I'm taking the photos, what I'm trying to do is tell a story with the picture. Each picture, I'm just trying to tell a story. It's not overly complicated. Like sometimes I hear people talking about their photo. I'm like, really? You got all that from that one shot? Like, wow. Like usually I'm just trying to say this is the coolest red bird I've ever seen, and I want to show it up. You know what I mean? I'm not overly intelligent, so my stories are my stories are pretty simple. But that's what I'm trying to do with the photos is to show people the world is cool. And what I love to do, see, I could go and take a bunch of pictures of famous things. And I think what people like about my photography when it's just for me is I'm shooting like everyday things in a way that you might not have ever looked at it before and trying to give you a different perspective because I'm a cup half full person. If you haven't figured that out, right? Like I don't look at the world. And this is, I think comes back to Camden, your thought process on no, do you have thick skin? Is it going to kill you? Like, no, not at all. Because I know probabilities, even if it's 10%, if I hit you enough times, one of those shots, I'll give you a lucky bounce. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm cool with it. But, I think part of the world is it gets so easy to see that red light as a bad thing. Oh, I had to stop. You know what I mean? But here's an opportunity for you to look away from the wheel for a second and do something safely. Right? There's all kinds of advantages. If you look at everyday things, the things that people take negatively, like traffic. Well, I'll tell you what, for me, traffic helped me stay married for 20 years because when I was driving home after being frustrated at work all day, hearing no 50 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had time to decompress before I would get home. And then when I got home, I wasn't as grumpy as I would have been with my wife and kids. You see what I mean? So even though the traffic sucked, there was a benefit to it as well.
I love your perspective on that. The glass half full. Sorry. One of the things that I've thought about, and I really would be interested to hear perspective on this. I've never asked, honestly, a photographer or an artist. I've kind of just thrown this around a little bit, more whiskey philosopher type of circles. But that everything's beautiful if you take long enough to look at it. I live, out here in Tucson, and Sonoran Desert, I think, is beautiful. I thought it was ugly as hell when I first came out here. I missed the mountains, I missed the trees, all that kind of stuff, because I was comparing everything to Colorado, and they're just so different. Yeah. And now the argument I have with people when they say, oh, it's ugly here, Tucson's not great or anything, like, you got to take the time to appreciate the different aspects of it that are different from other places. I had a friend that traveled, they drove to the East Coast. He was moving out there. They were telling me all these different cities. Oh, they have a boardwalk, they have a this, they have a that. And I was like, have you ever taken the time to apply that same lens of focus to where you are? Because if you look long enough, you're going to see all of those different good qualities. Is that kind of your philosophy when you're talking about shooting those everyday things?
Yeah. I live in a desert. Okay. So I've grown up in the desert. I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. I can show you photos that I've taken that would knock your socks off. Every color imaginable. People think when they think the desert and they're from someplace where they've never been out west, what are they thinking? They're thinking like the Sahara Desert. They're thinking like just nothing but sand and skies and steam. I'm like, have you never been to the Mojave Desert? Brother, this is an amazing place. Joshua trees. I mean, just every type of, it's not bare sand in most places. It's covered in shrubs. That's why, you can have fires out here. Sunsets, sunrises, the colors after it rains, rattlesnakes, scorpions, tarantulas, ants, bees, wasps. I mean, there's so much. There's deer out here. There's bunny rabbits. I mean, there's so much to explore. It's hard for me to fathom that people don't see the beauty when they see it, but I get that they don't until they see some photos. Like, seriously, the colors, every shade of orange that you can imagine. And then just get a little water somewhere, right? And take that shot, like Lake Powell, for example, or go to the salt flats in Salt Lake, just outside Salt Lake City, or get the difference between the desert floor and the top of Mount Charleston or something like that. I mean, it's incredible. And don't get me started on cityscapes, because in the desert, it's not surrounded by, all the trees. Well, the trees from an artist perspective get in the way. They block the view. So it opens it up. Like if you're in Phoenix or Scottsdale or any of those towns, and you can see Camelback Mountain, and then you see you've got 3 or 4 layers depending on how you want to look at it. You've got the floor, the rooftops, you've got Camelback, then you've got the sky, right? And then it's almost always clear. So you get way more sunshine, picturesque days. So for, again, the sunrises and the sunsets and all the different colors, if you can get behind a mountain, so you're on the eastern side of the mountain and the sun goes down, that golden hour for a photographer lasts longer. It's a wonderful treat because now I have a longer period of time where I can shoot and getting sunsets and getting the colors from the sky when the sun is behind a mountain. It's an amazing thing. The Rockies are beautiful too. Don't get me wrong. I could go up there and have all kinds of fun. But I think when you love photography, you'll find beauty in, I'm not going to say anything because there are some things I don't want to be graphic, but there are some things I just don't want to take photos of. Feces is coming to mind. All right. I've never taken a picture of feces that I think is beautiful. Like I have taken some pictures of it to be funny. Right. But never from an artistic standpoint, like, oh, this is like the fly on top of the crap. He's happy. There's crap. Like, no, yeah, I don't want to take that shot. But almost everything else, I'm there.
Kind of building on that. Right. Kind of building on that. What kind of, you talk about photography being a little bit genetic, which, even though you found it professionally later on in life, I'm sure that it's kind of baked into you a little bit as a person. What kind of lessons and philosophy do you take from photography that you apply to business and life for that matter?
Oh, that's a great question. And there's a lot. There is an absolute lot to be learned. First thing is not everybody is going to like everything. So, for example, I am known for a couple different styles of shots. One I call hybrid color. So imagine you have the main object, like let's say, Camden, I took your photo right now. I would have you be in color and everything else in the shot would be black and white. Now, some people love it. They think, wow, that's artistically cool and it's different. But other people look at it and go, I hate it. Or even people who go black and white versus full color, right? Everybody has their personal preference. So don't be offended when your flavor isn't their flavor. It's okay. Different strokes for different folks. So that's one thing. Another thing that we've learned is perspective, right? The perspective makes all the difference. If I take a picture of you and you're in the forefront right now, you are not in an optimal place for photography because we're trying to put you in this thing called the rule of thirds. So some people, when they look at you, if I took your photo right now, just the way you're standing, they would go, that's an awful shot, right? But if I took you and back you up about 4 feet, yep. Now I'm going to shift you over to the left just a little bit. Go over to the left about a foot. Yep, right there. Now I take your picture. Now you're in the perfect spot for the rule of thirds. Okay, so a classically trained photographer or artist is going to go, that's a great shot. But 99% of everyone else is going to go, why isn't he in the middle? I don't get it. So if I want to win an art competition, I got to use the right, you know what I mean? It's like, you have to know your audience. Perspective makes a huge difference. And that's life, right? Like, let's go back to the red light. Most people are irritated by that red light because it made them stop. But I have already told you there's advantages to the red light. I can grab my coffee and look at it and sip it without having to worry about, what's going on around me because I'm sitting at the red light. I could change the station on the radio. I mean, who does that anymore, right? You're on Spotify or whatever. But yeah, okay, so I'm a little old. But you could, you know what I mean? You dropped something, you can bend over and pick it up. You know what I mean? Like all those things. There's advantages to just about everything if you have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And so photography has taught me how to look at things in different ways. Even when I look at something, the first pass through, I look at it, this is obviously awful. And I'm going to tell you where this happens to me a lot is interpersonal relationships. Somebody I know does something and I think, man, why did they do that? That's not right. But then what I've learned to do is try to look at it from their point of view. And that's something that I learned in photography, trying to change the perspective. And by doing that, oh my gosh, the world, first of all, is a lot more interesting, but also I get in a lot less conflict because I can see it from a different perspective. So
I love the whole perspective thing, and yeah, I could talk another hour about understanding and adapting and seeing other people's perspectives and being open to that. But what I'd like to shift to, talking about perspectives, is how you shifted your business, because you went from Friday night, yeah, sure, I'll build a website and we'll take some pictures, the solopreneur,
yeah.
to now a business, an entrepreneur. You've made that shift, which many, many, many people struggle.
Yeah, that wasn't easy for me. That wasn't
Yeah,
easy,
I
but
know.
I got involved with this group, and it's a private group. And one of the lessons, the very first lesson, in fact, that I learned from the group was this thing called the law of the architect. And the law of the architect said that you can't be if you want to be successful, you can't be doing everything. You have to have other people do it for you. You have to be the visionary, and you have to let other people do the work. And I was like, dang it, because the first year of Bowman Digital Media, we were growing like crazy. I had a lot of success. I broke 6 figures my first year doing it the way I was doing it, but I was doing it wrong, but I was surviving. But I basically built myself a job. Okay. So then when I heard this, I was like, all right, with this law of the architect, what can I do to start and get out of that seat? And in full disclosure, I'm not completely out of that seat yet. I still have things that I do, right? But I have a team now of people that also help me, which is great. So what I learned was basically it's okay to let other people who are maybe not as good as you do these tasks, because they can still hit the mark, and it frees you up to do the things that they can't do or people cannot do for you. So like for me right now, I don't have anybody on my team that has, the social media following that I do, right? I have 500,000 followers across all of social media. So it's a lot of people. So when I'm making these posts on these social media platforms, that gives us a lot of momentum and visibility. And that has afforded me not to have to spend any money marketing or advertising, which is a great blessing to have. Okay. Well, I can't find anybody to do that for me yet, but design work, building websites, doing SEO work, writing blogs, that stuff, I have people do it for me now, which is nice. So that was the shift. That was the shift.
Go ahead, Cam.
What I was going to say was, I think the interesting thing that I'm taking away for what you just said, Ira, is, and this isn't the word you used, but talking about the person being like good enough at the job that they can keep things moving forward. Like, I think a lot of the times as the leader, it's like you want this level of perfectionism that you apply to your own work. And so you want them to hit that same level.
Yeah.
But that is such an unrealistic expectation. You got to leave room for growth.
Well, let me blow the lid off of everybody for a second, because this is perspective. But when you get out of the way and let somebody who's at a 70% or 80% do your job and don't micromanage them, sometimes, I'm just going to say sometimes, they come up with ideas that you would have never come up with. And now you have a new SOP that's way better, way more efficient. And you would have never thought of it because you were stuck in you were so superior. This is obviously the way we need to do it. And I will tell you something else. Life mostly isn't static. Life is a lot of times dynamic. So when you start taking a team now, 3 or 4 or 5 people that are 60%, 70%, 80% of your ability in one thing, but you add them together, a lot of times their end result is going to be way more than the 100% that you are going to give. And again, remember what I said. Now I'm completely free with that time to do something different. So I'm not only hitting the mark, the clients are thrilled. I have increased capacity, but also I'm free to go do something else. Just saying, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I could design every website, every single one of them. I could write every backlink. I could write every blog, but you only have 24 hours in the day. See, when people ask me what's more important to you, time or money, I say time. Why? Can't get any more of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can find ways to get money. You can find ways to get just about anything you want, but we are all limited in time. So by getting people on my team, what I did in essence was give myself free time.
Where is the digital stuff going next? Yeah, and
Yeah,
I meant
I got
that
this
to
for
be
you.
really broad because of everything that you've got your fingers in. I'm just
Yeah,
kind of
I
curious.
got this. I got this for you all day. Okay, so right now, the way that we experience online stuff, apps, it's pretty much our phones or our desktops, right? So you're walking around and you're looking into a device. We've all seen the goggles, right? Put the goggles on. Those AR virtual reality goggles are going to change the world. There's more coming than just goggles. There's more coming. Some of you have seen like the sleeves you put on, and now you can actually, so you can see it, you can touch it. Well, I'm going to tell you something you probably never thought of, but soon you're also going to smell it and you're going to taste it. And so this virtual reality world that we're coming into is why, if you haven't got into crypto yet, I seriously recommend you look at it. In fact, if you need a recommendation, let me give you one. Here's a book. I didn't write the book. I have nothing to do with the book. You can't really see it. Sorry.
Camden's reading that one right now, man.
Yeah,
That's a great.
I got the cover off, but yeah.
It's called the Bitcoin Standard. Okay. What I love about this book is it explains how money works, but let me explain to you why it's so important. In the digital space, we've all seen and heard about the credit cards that get hacked. Businesses get hacked all the time. So unless you're paying with cash or cryptocurrency, you have a risk every time you make a payment. Every time you buy something, you're at risk. Not from usually the person you're buying from. They're usually legit, right? But the people that are out there that want to break into their database, they're not coming after you, the individual. They're coming after the database that has millions and millions and millions of these processed payment information. So they've got your account number, they've got your expiration date. Sometimes they even have access to your PIN numbers, your security codes, and your signature, depending on how you do it. Okay. It's a very, very big problem. When you study crypto and learn about what's called the blockchain, this is why it's so different. The blockchain is basically, with today's technology, not hackable because of the way the system works. I don't have time to explain it. You have to figure it out. But the multiplicity, the duplicity, it's many, 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 many times over. And it's almost impossible. In fact, I would say it's virtually impossible to hack that right now. The only way they're going to get your information is if they hack your digital wallet. So long as you protect your personal stuff, you don't have to worry about, and I'm just going to throw a couple names out, and I don't mean any disrespect, but like if you shop at Target or Walmart or Amazon or any of these places and they get hacked and they have your information because you've saved it or you've made a purchase, guess what? Now the bad guy has your stuff. So crypto not only is a safer way to purchase, but also think about what I just said. You're inside now a virtual 3D world and you're meeting people and you're going to meetings and you're shopping and you can touch, taste, smell the whole thing. You've got a wallet, you reach into your virtual butt and pull out your wallet and you make your payment with your crypto. So it's not just crypto. That's not the point of this. The point is that we can live very much in a virtual space. The kids have been doing this with Roblox already. They just haven't been doing the tasting, smelling, but they're buying stuff. People are buying virtual property. They're buying virtual things that it never expires. Anyways, the virtual world is kind of like buying space in outer space. Have you ever seen buy a star, buy some property on a planet, whatever? It's kind of like that. And it seems science fiction, but it's called Web3. Some people call it meta. You call it what you want. It's coming very soon.
You see, like even billboards out there in that sort of sense of.
Oh yeah, well billboards. Yeah. You can buy billboards now. Yeah. you can buy billboards now, but you'll be able to advertise. I mean, look, there is no limit. You're limited in that environment. You're really limited by your imagination. The technology is pretty much already been invented. It just needs to be mass right now for, there's different platforms. Because when you really want to talk about it, it's all just server space. So if you've got 3 different people with a giant server farm who want to host these worlds, and that's the funny thing. It's kind of like having a Nintendo versus a PlayStation versus a Switch or whatever the game system is. It's kind of like that right now. Now, will they eventually all interconnect? I don't know. I mean, that depends on the people who own it, frankly. But as far as billboards and stuff, like now, you could drive down the street in the old days, go back to the 80s, 90s, even the 2000s, the billboards were all pretty much static. Now, a lot of them are dynamic. They're boards. They actually charge more. You don't even get the board the whole time. You get it for part of the time, but you pay actually more than you used to pay for just the static print by the month. Well, when you're shopping and you're going to places like Caesar's Forum in Vegas and you're looking at a digital display when it adds up, there's something looking back at your eyes and tracking your eyes. Okay, we got their attention. They're going to see what you're looking at, for how long you're looking at, and they're going to take that data and they're going to say, okay, they're going to use demographics. They're going to capture the demographics and they're going to store that data and report back. So now in future, when somebody's looking at running a similar ad, they've got real time. Hey, in the past, this many people actually looked at that ad. It generated interest. You're going to see that more and more. We used to call them cookies. Cookies are pretty much going away because Apple was the hero here, not Google, but everybody had to follow suit. So now there's this new thing called Pixels. Is basically the same thing. It's just a little bit fancier tool. But anyways, there's always going to be a way that marketing information is going to be collected and then extrapolated and then used to inform future marketing. Marketing will never, ever go away. Never. Mm-hmm. Advertising pays for a lot. Most of you don't pay for the radio. The advertising does. Most of you don't pay for regular TV. Advertising does. A lot of websites and apps are free because the advertisers are paying. They're basically supplementing the cost so that you don't have to pay it. That's never going to go away.
I think the interesting thing when you talk about, blockchain, crypto, Web3, all of that and how confusing it can all get, I think the big lesson that I've realized diving into more and more research on it is like looking at the things that we have now, the different systems, and it's like, what function does it really serve? And then looking forward, it's like that function still needs to be served. It's just going to be served in a different way. Right. And when you look at it from that perspective, these things seem a lot less weird. Like, Dad, you were saying about the billboards. I remember reading an article, this was months ago, about I don't remember what game it was or what world it was, however you'd put it, because I'm, out of that generation a bit. But it was Gucci had done a design and they launched like 10 of these Gucci bags that there are 100 of in real life. And they sold for twice as much in the metaverse or wherever they were than the real bag was selling in real life because people had this super high demand for it. It's because the demand there, talking about looking at the mechanism, the demand there is the need to flex your cash a little bit and look at the cool thing that I got and all that kind of stuff. That's not going away. Like all these different aspects that you're talking about, Ira, those aren't going away. They're just going to evolve into what this new world is. And I just, that was one thing I just wanted to add there, just of like, because I think that too much, it's like we want to put it in good, bad buckets rather than just being like, these are things that are changing and what are the real functions of what's changing? Because that's so much easier of a way to look at it.
Human nature.
I guess not easier, smarter.
Yeah, but human nature is what it is. There are people that always want to have the coolest thing. That's what motivates them, right? To work hard or, they've got the money, right? It's not like the people rob somebody to buy the Gucci bag, digital or real. Like but that's their thing. So if you change the landscape that we're in, you change the environment that we're in, the innate nature of people, they're human, what motivates them is auspiciously going to be the same. It might be changed a little bit because of the environmental differences, but at the end of the day, we're people. We have the desire to eat. We have the desire to sleep. Well, some of us do, right? Some of us want to be the best at whatever we do. Some of us want to have the most expensive things. Some of us want to be the biggest givers. Some of us want to help. You know what I mean? People have different motivations. Change the environment and people at the end of the day are still going to, their stripes are still going to show, if you will.
One question that you got me thinking of earlier, Ira, and I want to kind of throw this out to both of y'all is, you're talking about in the law of the architect of, putting people below, not putting people below you. That sounds like a weird way to put it, but
Yeah.
building your team so that you can pursue your vision and those type of things.
Yeah.
My question is, do you think that, how can you tell if you are that visionary? Because I think that there is this barrier of limiting beliefs that can stop a lot of people and limit them from achieving their potential. But at the same time, I think there's this realistic approach of like, well, we're not all going to be visionaries, we're not all going to change the world overnight, like all of these different things that are very real, constraints around that. So how can you, to put it in a super simple way for a complicated question, how could you tell if you're a visionary or not for your team? I'll throw it to you first, Ira.
That's a complicated question. And I would say this, I don't believe that everybody has the capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, there's this fear out there, imposter syndrome, right? I'm sure you guys have talked about imposter syndrome or heard about it, but imposter syndrome, you're afraid that you're phony or whatever. So I think the first thing that people have to understand is I had imposter syndrome when I started Bowman Digital Media, because we've been talking about it. I didn't have this in my background, right? What I had was the ability to design and the ability to sell. And I knew I had the ability to lead. But what I didn't have was this marketing background, this advertising background, this SEO background. So why would somebody want to pay me to do it? And here's the thing that I will tell you. I think that almost anybody could be a business owner if they really wanted to be, but they may have to do a lot of reading. They may have to do a lot of talking with other people. So an informative interview, if you will, get some role models. Like, just because you're the visionary doesn't mean you are I'm not the world's foremost expert guru at anything. I even hate this term influencer, even though I do use it. In fact, I'm honored. I was just ranked the 137th most influential person on LinkedIn by size, by account size. And I've been on this list for this is my third year, but I didn't start out like when I got on LinkedIn in 2009 thinking that I was going to have the 137th largest profile on LinkedIn. That's not where it started, right? My vision for growing, even when I started to build my network, started in 2018, and I didn't set out with that goal. So does that make me a visionary because I got where I am now? Does that mean I have arrived and I don't need to keep pushing? Like, no, I think the thing that people need to maybe feel comfortable is, I hate this term, fake it till you make it. I don't believe in that at all. I think you should actually be the opposite. Be authentic, transparent, admit your limiting capabilities.
Can I add my favorite version of that phrase? I got this from a project I did on Leonard Skinner once, is they called it earn while you learn. I'm like, hey, we aren't there yet, but you can pay us to play in the bar.
Well, that's where I am right now at Digital Media. All right, Bowman Digital Media, we do 6 things. We do them very well, but we don't claim to be the best at any of them. And we're still trying to get better at all of them, right? We just have found our niche, and we found a model that works, and we're continuing. Like I said, those 60, 70, 80 percenters, they're teaching me some things. And I have friends in the space that I ask stuff all the time, and we kind of like share information about what's coming down the road. Because, if you're really paying attention to what's coming and can shift where you are to where you need to be, even if you're behind right now, all of a sudden 2 years later, you can find yourself out in front. The momentum is in the front of the wave. So what I would tell people that maybe they're like, I don't know, can I be the visionary? Can I drive the bus? The answer is probably yes to most of you. Now, some of you maybe not, and you have to be honest with yourself. Are you reliable? Are you self-motivated? Do you easily get discouraged or distracted? Are you responsible with finances? You know what I mean? How is your emotional control? Because if you're flying off the handle all the time, this is probably a train wreck. And let me tell you this, it's a huge responsibility when you have a team working for you, because, and I learned this in management and then as a director in my print career, it's not just me at that point. It's not just my family. Now it's their families. And also then you've got the clients and it's their livelihood. So you have to be able to carry this weight. Not everybody can do that. Now, I'm not saying it's physically impossible for them. I'm just saying where they are. They have to be honest. So there's things that I'm working on right now to improve myself so that I will be a better visionary leader for everybody's sake, for my sake, for my family's sake, for my team's sake, for their family's sake, for my client's sake, even for my vendors, the people that, they're not a part of my team, but I hire them. Like it's a whole, when you start a business, it's a whole ecosystem, right? And your goal is to build the ecosystem up as much as possible. So yeah, I think most people could do it. Maybe most of us, like myself included, you're not where you need to be perfect at it. And I don't even like the word perfect, but really good, right? So, remedial is okay. Like, I love what you just said about Leonard Skinner, right? Earn while we learn. Everybody should be learning. I think we should be reading and learning until the day we die.
That's awesome. And speaking of learning, man, I'm getting the segues today. Thanks for the setup, Ira, man.
You're welcome, brother.
Man, what I learned is I love the aw shucks metaphor of it, but it's all about the relationship, right?
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying the people you're working with, why go through the pain, man? Why go find somebody you enjoy working with? And especially when you're the business owner, when you're the architect, there we go. I was going to say archetype, but I think it's architect. That would be the proper word. When you're the architect of the business, why would you work with people you don't enjoy being around? So yeah, always remember that it's about the relationship. It's not the hard sell. The hard sells never work. Yeah, there's some people you can bully into buying, but you'll never get them coming back, and you'll never get referrals. So the relationship is the way to go. So that's the aw shucks is such a good way of putting it, and I appreciate you saying that. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
I learned that I need a Bluetooth mic so that I can record the podcast, not up here, but right about here. So, without having to yell the whole time, I think a Bluetooth mic might be in my future.
I'll come over and put an X on the floor for you there, buddy, so you know where to stand.
Perfect.
Got to have the Johnny Carson X on the floor, man. That's it. That's it. Awesome. Ira, what'd you learn?
Man, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on the show, because it's early for me. I know it's not early anymore. It's 10 o'clock, but it's a lot of fun to dig down and kind of remember. So what I'm learning is more of remembering some of the journey, right? And I appreciate the stroll down memory lane, talking about, how I got into the video and the perspective of the camera and what I love it so much. But I like that Leonard Skinner earn while you learn. I'm gonna use that. I like that a lot. So I think my takeaway, like brand new information, because I'd never thought of it in that way, is Leonard Skinner says, yeah, you can hire us, play the bar, we'll earn while we learn. Good. I like that.
Shout out
That's
to the
awesome.
University of Arizona for having a classic rock and American popular music class for me to take, and you waste my 8 a.m., but I learned something.
I was a music major starting out at San Jose State, and I took all kinds of interesting music classes. The one that is really interesting that just came up in conversation with my wife the other day, I took a history of African dance class, and the music that we learned in that was so interesting. But we were watching something and it came up. I'm like, oh, I know that. That's from so-and-so. And my wife goes, how do you know that? I'm like, San Jose State, baby. I was a Spartan. Anyways, music's fun. Music is a lot of fun. And music, by the way, people don't think about this when we're talking about the virtual world. Music is not going away. Music is actually going to be everywhere in this space. So if you're looking for something to master, get out there and learn how to write and compose music, you can make a lot of money.
Ira, how do folks get in touch with you and learn more about what's going on at Bowman Digital Media?
So on Bowman Digital Media, I have a media kit. So if you go to bowmandigitalmedia.com and then just hit the media kit, it has, access to everything else. But you can, type my name. You can type my name in Google and you'll see it. Now, there's a famous Ira Bowman. Here's something you can learn today. There's a famous Ira Bowman. He was a basketball player in the NBA, and now he's the coach for, I believe it's Auburn. Anyways, so on the first page of Google, it's me and him. Now, interesting story real fast. When I started doing my SEO in 2018, you couldn't find me until page 10 on Google. But because I learned SEO, now I'm on page 1. In fact, I dominate pages 2 and 3. So a buck tooth, blind as a bat, bald, short guy. I mean, I have no advantage. I'm not famous by anything, but you know what I mean? SEO, it's the power of SEO. There you go. So if you Google Ira Bowman, you could go to irabowman.com. That's my photography website, but you can find me. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I'm everywhere.
Awesome, man. Hey, this has been great, Ira. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day so early in the morning for you California folks. Goodness, man, but really good to hang out with you, and thanks for sharing with us.
Yeah, the digital media world is one that stays up late more than gets up early. We're up when the sun comes up. We're not getting up when the sun comes up. So
there you go. That's a great way of putting it. I know you are, because yeah. Hey man, again, appreciate it. Camden,
Otis
run
and
us
Camden. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all for listening to the Cam and Otis Show, and a special thanks to our guest, Ira Bowman, for joining us today. And of course, our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. Get started for free today at findyourpurpose.coach. Make sure to follow the Cam and Otis Show on Instagram and Facebook, and please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Videos of the podcast are on our YouTube page, and you can always get a full archive of our episodes at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.